Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of NintendoFuse's Industry Talk. I'm your host, Barry, and today I am joined by an extremely special guest, Valarie McLeckie from Heritage Auctions.
Thank you so much for having me, Barry. I'm
Oh,
glad to be here.
the honor is all mine. I'm really happy that you agreed to sit down and talk. We did get to meet, which is cool, in too many games this year, and we had a really cool conversation. And I'm really happy that you were like, hey, let's do this talk because you're a really cool person, and I could really. I got those really good vibes from you. But for all those that are watching, they didn't have that conversation. They didn't have that experience. So let's start off. For those of you that don't know, Valarie is the consignment director for Heritage Auctions, specifically for video games. So why don't you tell a little bit about your background, who you are, and what you bring to the table?
Sure. Well, I mean, I've identified as a collector pretty much all my life. When I was growing up, basically got started with Pokemon cards, as many people of my generation have. But as I got older, I just became more and more interested in the vast variety of video games there were to play. I mean, granted, Pokemon is still one of my favorites, but nevertheless, as I got older, maybe around college age, I started to care more and more about the condition of my games, the history of games, and just, started to soak up that information like a sponge anywhere that I could get it. I've been at Heritage since the category was founded. I basically helped start it up. And it's just, I'm so proud to be part of what we built.
That's fantastic. As a collector, uh, it's great to see that somebody that's in this position, has that passion as well. So about Heritage, what attracted you to Heritage? Like why go to Heritage?
Well, I think it was just one of those things. I grew up not really knowing what I wanted to do, never really had this sort of clear picture that I felt like I needed to have of what exactly I wanted in life. But I always knew that I loved collecting, and I guess I didn't. My cat just did something crazy behind me, didn't she?
Yes, and she's caught in videos. That's all right. Zelda
Oh,
made a special
man,
guest appearance.
Zelda, she is just, she needs to make herself known. I'm so sorry. Um, I knew someone that helped me get my foot in the door. I caught wind of the fact that they were interested in entering, the video game collecting space. And when I reached out, um, I got this response of, well, put together a business proposal and let us know how you would run this category, and we'll consider you. And I thought, oh, I've never even put together a business proposal before, and I don't even know what that looks like. And it was like, they wanted this 10-page document. And I thought, well, if I don't get started now, it's not going to get done. So somehow I managed to come up with 10 pages of content that would be relevant to how it would be run. Got in, and as soon as I started, I just realized, oh, this is where I've always wanted to be. It just sort of happened. Like it kind of felt like everything fell into place in a way that I always hoped it would.
That is fantastic. As you said that, like the whole put together a business proposal and all that. I honestly thought in my head, how would I do that? Like, if I was pressed with that. And it's funny that you had the exact same thing because I'm like, damn, how would I do that? So I commend you
Yeah,
for, the hardest word to write is the first one, as they say.
that's
So you
true.
did it, and that's great. And now that you're there, what is it like? Like, what is it like working at Heritage and doing the stuff you do?
Well, there's never a dull moment. My position has evolved so much since I got started, because in the beginning I was actually working full time in digital marketing while I was working part time at Heritage, and so I had to learn how to use my time efficiently and steal away from what I was doing in my personal life at times to kind of handle Heritage business. And I basically learned all aspects of how the company works throughout, the early time I was there, from, figuring out how do we store our lots, and how do I manage to pull the right ones, and how all the departments relate with each other. And I was, writing descriptions, answering client emails, handling issues between clients and accounting, like all of those things. And I still handle a lot of that. But as time has gone on, like I've taken on more of a managerial role, and now I basically help keep the wheels on the road, basically, is the way I like to describe it.
Well, you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. So since you're obviously dealing with video games, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of cool stuff come in, and I'm just kind of curious, what are some of your favorite grail items, if you will, that have come across your desk and it's been like, oh my God, like this is here in front of me.
Oh, there's so many. I mean, I've got a short list of favorites for sure. Um, Definitely the sealed Resident Evil long box is up there with the best of them. Like, since day one, I had hoped one day to handle something like that item specifically. I mean, just
Are we talking
one of that
PlayStation or
caliber.
Saturn?
PlayStation.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had always hoped that one day we would be able to handle something like that. And I never would have anticipated it would happen so soon, because we're about 3 years in, from when this category was founded. And, lo and behold, a new one was found. And Nintendo PlayStation's up there too. Um, just because it's such an interesting historical item. The one of a kind pieces, they're honestly some of my favorites, even if they don't necessarily sell for like as strong of prices as some of the sealed games do. It just, something about handling those feels really special. The Game and Watch kiosk from the New York Toy Fair is definitely another one.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that felt special, being able to hold that. The Halo Bible's another one. Um, yeah, it's a really cool job, and I definitely am fully aware of how lucky I am to be able to handle such amazing historical pieces.
Color me jealous. I mean, I remember the Nintendo PlayStation going up. I'm like, I'm gonna try to bid on that, and then suddenly it was like, that's more than a house. As much as I wanted it, of course, I didn't go for it.
Yeah, the journey of auctioning that lot was such an interesting one. I mean, we had never really offered anything quite like that before in terms of historical significance. And I mean, uh I'm sure you've met Terry at some point, since you've, worked on the convention circuit for some time, I would guess.
Unfortunately, I never got to meet him before his
Mm,
passed, so I never
gotcha.
actually got to see the Nintendo PlayStation, personally.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. He was a really interesting guy, very nice. Just an interesting character. Like, he's definitely missed. But yeah, he was a blast to work with, I guess, as you could probably imagine if you've, heard
Yeah,
anything about how he is.
I've heard nothing but good stories, and every video I saw of
Yeah.
him, it's awesome.
Yeah, he was just a very warm and caring individual. So, yeah, he was fun to work with.
I mean, that is just so fantastic, and I know that's just the tip of the iceberg with what you've brought in. So why don't you take a moment here? Why don't you talk about some upcoming lots for anyone that's interested? Maybe something cool's coming out.
Oh, definitely. So, in a couple weeks, at least right now at the time of recording, we're going to have our Nintendo 8 to 64-bit showcase auction. This is going to be the first showcase auction we've ever done for video games at Heritage, but that venue style has been really popular and well received by bidders in, other categories like sports and comics and, that sort of thing. Um, so they're essentially themed auctions, and this first one is going to feature video games from, Nintendo consoles, from the NES all the way up until, I want to say, the GameCube. And we have some really spectacular lots lined up for it. Some of the highlights that I can think of off the top of my head are uh, WATA 9.2 A plus Super Mario World, a full set of sticker sealed black box CIBs. They're all being auctioned separately, but we have the full set up for auction. A WATA 9.4 A plus Metroid. I believe it's a Rev A round seal quality variant. And I mean, that's really just the tip of it. There's a lot of really cool pieces in that sale. So we're really excited to see how that's received by bidders. And it actually opens for bidding on November 9th.
November 9th.
So
Okay.
right around the corner.
Right. Yeah, that's just less than
Quick.
a week away. Oh my.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is first off amazing. Just some of those titles to see some of them. Now let's say someone watching this, they have one of these titles and they're like, oh, I'd like to sell it. What would be the process for somebody to take their title that they have sitting in their house right now and wind up in one of your lots to sell?
That's a really good question. I mean, there's a couple of different ways that they can reach out to us. They can call, but generally the best way is to either go onto our website and fill out a consignment inquiry form, or email us at videogames@ha.com. Uh, there are other specialists on our team, and look, I feel like I'm building the A team there. Everyone I work with is awesome. So I know that no matter who they get routed to, they're gonna be taken great. They're gonna be taken good. That we're gonna take good care of. Sorry, I got a little tongue tied.
That's all right.
Um, you know, sometimes even though you say the spiel over and over again, like you want to get it out faster than you can actually think of it. um, but yeah, sending images, we can definitely help with that. And not to mention, if anyone ever is curious as to what their game is going for in the current market, we archive all of our data and it's available online for free as long as you have like a free HA account and you're signed in. You can just search for your game and look for a comparable grade, and you can see roughly what it's been going for in our recent auctions.
That's great. Now, I know I'm a novice when it comes to graded stuff. I'm a collector, but my stuff is, opened, it's played, it's loved for a lot of it. Um, with if someone wanted to look up and see what it's going for, I know in addition to what previous items have sold for, there's also things such as population reports. And would
Hmm.
somebody be able to see that, say it was Mario Brothers, and they want to know what it's worth, and they see what one recently sold for, but is there a population report that they could also see how many of that particular, grade have sold, and they have a better idea?
I I wish. I've been hoping and asking and wishing and praying for a population report from WADA for quite a long time. I do hold the belief that population reports would only lend more strength to the video games market. We do our best to try and gauge what the population is of a game by canvassing collectors, because some information is better than no information at all. So for example, like on the sealed Dr. Wright Mega Man, when we offered that, we said there were less than 5 that we have known to be graded, and at the time, that was the case. I don't think any more have been graded since then, but that's generally what we say, because we have to kind of strike this balance between um, you know providing providing the information that somebody would need to make a sound bidding decision, and keep them from potentially missing out on something that they wouldn't want to let pass them by, if that makes
No, that
sense.
totally makes sense, 100%.
Yeah.
Now,
Um,
well, I know obviously each grading company, VGA, WADA,
yeah.
they would have to have their own population reports, because they're their own unique entities. But I'm curious if Heritage is planning on doing that just with the stuff that they've sold. So that maybe you say like, oh,
Oh,
I
gotcha.
don't. I don't know the exact population of how many WADA has graded or VGA has graded, but I could tell you we have sold 4 or 5 of these, and here's what they went for.
We do that. We already do that. So
Good.
if you go onto our website and just type in like WATA Super Mario Brothers 1995, you'll see every copy we've ever sold of that game. and that's not going away. Um, that data is going to stay on our website until, the end of time, basically. We're not getting rid of that. It's always going to be there. So, at the very least, it is somewhat helpful. It's better than nothing. And we provide that for other categories too. uh, our stance on data sharing is that it's a good thing. Like, we want people to have information that empowers them to make the collecting decisions that are right for them.
Absolutely. I agree with that, and I think that if everyone communicated a little bit, I think it would be a little bit better. You mentioned it's always one of the things as a collector, you see something that you may consider a grail or a personal thing you want to go for, and maybe a little bit more than you want to spend, but you have to weigh, will another one of these come up? And as a personal collector, I've bought stuff and then I've never seen it come up again, and I'm like, that was a good purchase. And then there's other times where I purchased it and I've watched three more come up and cheaper, and I go, wow, I should have waited. And I think other collectors probably have dealt with that. Of course, I'm not talking of the level, the graded level or the stuff you deal with, but I think that is an important thing to make any type of sound decision, especially when you're dealing with some of the prices that things have been commanding. And now I'm going to get into this because the prices that things have been commanding lately have been a little bit insane. And I will say that as a collector, as somebody who has studied this industry and been a collector literally my entire life, so almost 40 years now, and I first noticed something was a little weird when I was watching Pawn Stars one night, and I saw that $100,000 Mario come up on Pawn Stars. I'm like, wait a second, I know that copy. There was this big articles about it, and something didn't sit right with me. And we have a podcast, and I did talk about it there after it aired. I said, this doesn't sit right with me. I feel something's off, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And then of course there has been this video that came out now a couple months ago, I think, from Carl Jobst, which talked about the relationship between Heritage Auctions and WADA, and the founder of WADA, and very scandalous. And it was definitely an eye-raising video, and it was a one-sided video. Um, Now, first, I'm sure you've seen it. I'm sure you've heard about it. I'm sure you've been asked about it. Um, After that video came out, I just want to know, how did that affect your work at all, if anything?
That's a good question. So, my first reaction, I was just really sad that, no attempt was made to reach out to us and, get our side of things. After the video came out, we did release a statement that, basically goes over and clarifies all the claims that were made in that video, and basically shows that they're false. Um, and Even since then, no attempt has been made to reach out to us for comment. So, I mean, it just so that part of it didn't really sit well with me.
How did this affect you though, like on a more personal level, in the sense of your job? Did people ask you, hey, did you I don't trust you anymore, why should I sell with you? Or or did it have the opposite effect, where, what, I don't care about that video, I've just learned about Heritage, and now I want to sell with you? Did you have any effect like that?
So yeah, I mean, there was definitely some buzz around it. Like, I did get asked on a fairly regular basis, mainly from people who I've never spoken with before, about the video. But I mean, it didn't change any relationships that I have in this industry at all. In fact, I mean, a week or two after that video posted, we had the first lot on Heritage to ever sell for six figures in a weekly. And it happened in the video games category. So, if anything, it kind of, gave us a little bit of a visibility bump. So, it honestly hasn't really affected much, if anything, and especially not negatively. So, I know that wasn't the intended effect from what I saw from the video, but yeah, didn't really change things.
Well, they say there's no such thing as bad publicity, right? Uh, so now you also mentioned that there was no attempt to reach out for your side of the story, and I know Heritage did put out a statement as you mentioned, but I'm curious, what is your side of the story? Like what do you feel were wrong? What was wrong? What would you like to say to the people that they didn't read that statement? They only saw the video and they make their decisions based on that video with the evidence presented to them, because there is some damning evidence there, whether it's true or not. Some people will obviously come to a judgment, and I want you to have the ability to state your side and your beliefs and your feelings on this.
Okay. Well, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with the release that we put out. It pretty much addresses everything in the video. So I would definitely recommend looking at that. I think it summarizes everything beautifully. And just as far as my side of things, it's you know, we we put these lots up for sale. We describe them to the best of our ability. We haven't misdescribed anything to such a degree that it's, you know, incorrect. And we've never published estimates, pre-auction or post-auction, anything like that. And it's not like, uh, we can tell people what to bid. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the free market has decided that these games are worth what they've sold for because somebody decided to go in and place a bid, and then one other person decided to place a very close bid to that bid. And that's essentially like how the market is set. I mean, um, things sell for strong prices right now, sure. And I recognize that everything has sort of accelerated. Like the strength of the market has accelerated to a point that it seems unrealistic in such a short period of time. But, if you look at the market progression of other collectibles, like, coins or comics or, anything else that's highly formalized, you'll see like there are very similar patterns there as there are to video games. It's just that now in this day and age with the internet and our, intense interconnectedness, word travels much faster than it used to. So it's no surprise that the market has just matured to this point in such a short period of time with, those outside factors considered.
It's funny you mentioned coins because that was actually one of the focal points of the video with the whole coin boom in the 80s being, kind of tied to the lot of gaming and the gaming boom. Do you think, coins obviously dropped in value after that little bit of boom where everyone was buying the coins and now I'm going to retire on these. From your experience, do you think the same thing's going to happen with specifically graded games? I'm not saying all games, but specifically graded games.
Well, I mean, in short, I hope not, but it's a market, right? Like you can't predict what's going to happen. Nobody could have predicted that that would have happened with coins. And since then, market's gone back up, especially, if you look at all collectibles markets, they're all up right now. And a lot of that is just because so many of us have been at home, isolated, not spending our money on, activities where we could go somewhere. And so we looked at the things that we enjoyed as kids and put our money in that. And since everyone was doing it, it kind of, drove things up. So, I mean, I guess the answer is I certainly hope it doesn't, but it's a market and I wish I had a crystal ball and could say things are just going to keep going up, but that's unrealistic. Who knows when we'll hit that, that point. I do have a lot of confidence in this market, and I think it's going to be a collectibles market for the long haul. It's not going anywhere. But to say that I would know, how to time it, it's just impossible. Nobody can do it.
No one. Now I did mention earlier about the Pawn Stars episode, and I don't know if you saw that, the one I'm referring to. How do you feel about things like that, where one of the owners of the game is also the expert brought in to value the game with the conflict of interest and something like that? Do you think that hurts? Do you think it helps? Do you disagree or agree, or what's your take on that? I mean, that didn't have to do with heritage, but
Sure. Well, I mean, I can understand how the optics of that would be confusing, especially for people who are not like part of the overall collectibles market. But at the end of the day, Pawn Stars is a reality TV show.
yes, it is.
I mean, it's those things are, for lack of a better explanation, they're kind of staged. Like, I don't think that I don't think that they were trying to make it seem as if it wasn't. So that's really all I have to say about that, because they stage things like that all the time, and it's just reality TV show.
So you don't think there's any negative effect to staging somebody coming in and valuing the $100,000 Super Mario Brothers at $1 million, which is what they part owned of it, to try and get a 10% or 1,000% increase?
Wait a second, because it's been a really long time since I've seen that Pawn Stars episode. Um, I don't recall anyone saying, especially not, uh, the representative from WADA, Dennis. I don't remember
It was
him
Dennis.
saying that it was definitively valued at that in the current market.
Well, I mean, it was a couple years ago, I think, at this point, so it wouldn't be the
Yeah,
current market.
it's been a really long time.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's a very fair question.
Well, it just seemed weird, like him valuing it so high, and I think it was 1 million. It might have been less, or maybe that's what the guy wanted. Was 1 million, but he valued it very high
I
or
think
highly.
I think that you might be misremembering. I think that the guest, not necessarily the water representative, was the one who valued it at that. But I think that ultimately they did not come to the conclusion that his estimate of his own item was correct.
How much do you want for it?
It's a piece of history. It's something that's hard for me to part with, but I would sell it for $1 million.
I know of firm offers that have been turned down at $300,000. It goes up from there. There's no ceiling, really.
I'm literally a little bit shocked and a little bit speechless, but realistically, what do you want for it?
I'm asking $1 million.
There's a big business in these right here, and I just been looking into maybe getting into it a little bit, but I'm not going to get into it with this kind of figures to start with.
Yeah, because it to me it just seemed a little weird, because that did just sell at 100,000, and that was like a record breaking sale at the time. But speaking of Pawn Stars, which is a good segue, they were also at Too Many Games, where we met, and there's something that I noticed specifically about Too Many Games walking around the show floor as a collector, and I know I'm not the only one, because I've watched a bunch of videos since then of people walking around, and a lot of people had the same feeling that I did, is that it almost felt a little less personal, because there were so many graded games. Like almost every gaming booth had graded games, and I think there was even one other auction house there that had graded games that weren't for sale. Like, these are ones we're going to be selling. They were just kind of showing them off, and Pawn Stars also was selling graded games, and it just seemed like if you weren't interested in graded games, there was a lot less for you than previous years. I don't know if you noticed that trend too. And if you did, what are your thoughts on that, and seeing so many, like this whole phase or fad of getting things graded?
How many booths were at Too Many Games, do you think?
Oh, shoot, I don't I don't know the exact number. There was a lot of booths. I mean, there was
Yeah, I would say, probably like, somewhere around 50. Do you think that's a
yeah,
reasonable estimate?
I would say 50 is close. Yeah.
How many booths had graded games?
I saw probably a good 10 to 12, But of those 50 booths, there were some artists that weren't selling games, and there was like our booth that wasn't. It was selling our own games. But I'm talking like of the vendors that were selling retro games. Yeah, I'm gonna say it was a good at least 20% of them were selling that I saw. At least some. I'm not saying that it was all their whole thing, but they had like, here's a shelf with some graded games, and it would just became like the trend, I noticed.
What was the percentage of their material that was graded?
That's that I didn't pay attention to. Like some boots were 100%, and some boots were
Right, like
maybe
Golden and Metropolis, which is to be expected because they're they're also a venue in our space, similar to us. But I would say for the most part, the dealers that I saw that had graded games, like 90% of their inventory was not graded. So I don't know that that's necessarily,
But
exactly.
if you went to cons prior to COVID and all this stuff, you didn't see that nearly as much. You didn't see you saw a lot less graded. You might have seen sealed, you might have seen stuff in protective boxes, but it wasn't like graded. It wasn't this big. It's like a movement now,
Yeah.
and definitely in the retro field. Like, how do you feel about that? Obviously, you sell it, so is that something that you're happy about, or is the collector in you kind of saddened by it? Like, well, is this really the direction it should go? Because now, if a game starts going for $1 million, you're obviously pricing out a lot of people, and that could technically hurt the collectible industry.
I don't necessarily agree with that,
Okay, cool.
because there are still plenty of, look, even if there are more graded games now than there were in the past, there's still plenty for everyone to collect. Like I saw at every dealer booth something for every budget point. So I don't think that it's ruining anything. I think that it's just expanding things. If somebody wants to collect sealed games and that's what they're interested in, then they should feel empowered to do that. And, third-party certification allows them to do so with confidence. Not everyone has the basis of knowledge that it takes to look at a game that's, sealed or complete in box and say, I know that this is genuine. And, they also want to make sure that what they're buying is, in a condition that they approve of. And the grading service allows them to kind of pass that work, that knowledge basis on to someone else. So I don't think it's a bad thing at all. It's just part of what happens when a collectible is formalized.
I do agree that there's definitely, positives to it as well. Absolutely, in that response, or in that way, for someone who's not as knowledgeable. Um, I think what a lot of people have problems with is the price jump. For example, you could take a sealed, Super Mario Brothers and be like, well, this is worth, say $50,000, but if it's now graded, it's now worth $1 million, and it's like, whoa, hold on, that's a big price discrepancy. Do you agree with that, or do you think that maybe some of it could be ballooned? And obviously, every game is different.
I see what you're saying. Well, as I said, it only takes two people
Oh yes.
to determine that something is worth, a certain price point, right? Okay. That we've agreed upon that. So from that same standpoint, that doesn't necessarily mean that the price point that those two people have set is replicable. So, do I think that the next Super Mario Brothers 64 and 988++ that goes to auction, is going to sell for $1 million? No. Like I don't think that's realistic, especially if it happens like anytime in the near future. 20 years from now? Maybe.
Who can say?
Yeah.
20 years from now it's a whole new can of worms. We might not even be on this planet anymore for all we know in 20 years. But I mean, there's other instances like the Spider-Man, the Atari Spider-Man, which obviously took a nosedive in value as more came out. And I'm curious how many, silent collectors are there that are just sitting on some of this stuff. how that will change the market. So the future is uncertain. That's the biggest takeaway.
And a population report would definitely help with that.
Yes.
Because, we can't be sure. Like, you never know. There may be somebody who's, graded a bunch of something, anything, and they're just kind of sitting on it and waiting. But, I can only hope that, the population report will come out soon, and that, there will be a lot more transparency about that in the future. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, like, that's what Heritage cares about the most, is transparency. And, that's one reason why it was so difficult to kind of grapple with the fact that we weren't really included in the conversation when all of those accusations surfaced.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing, and I do agree. I think a population report will certainly help alleviate and definitely help people spend with confidence. Probably help your business out quite a bit if people had an idea of how many X amount of copies are out there of X grade. So to finish up, what I'd like to know, is there anything you'd like to tell everybody out there listening? People like to pass their own judgments. We all do it. We hear one side of a story, we hear another side of a story. There's always conflicts. But if you can get out there right now and just, like, everyone's listening, what would you like to just say, about the industry, the state of it, the graded games, the heritage auction itself, what you do? Just what would you like to just say, your soapbox kind of deal?
Well, gosh, you're giving me so much power with this soapbox, so I gotta place it in and think. But I guess if I had to say anything at all, it would be, at the end of the day, we're all collectors in some way. Like, I'm sure that if you ask anyone, they will have collected something in their youth, or they kind of passively collect something now. And we all go about it in different ways. And, everybody's way is the right way. Like, everybody has their own right way. And I think that there's no one right way to collect. And, you just have to find your way. And I think that that's a good thing.
I couldn't agree more. It's collect what you love, and whether that be something from heritage auctions or whether that be something from a garage sale, as long as you're having fun, I say go for it.
Heck yeah. I mean, the hunt is, half the fun. So I get it.
Yeah, actually, sometimes the hunt is more fun than even just owning something.
That's true too.
All right.
Once I was like, yeah, I really love having this. I'm gonna keep it, but man, the hunt is over.
Yeah, now I finally have it. Now I need something else to hunt at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like I got that check mark off. So for anybody that is interested in just more information about heritage auctions, you could always go to the website, which is www.ha.com. You could find them on Twitter at Heritage Auctions. You could also find specifically the video game section in Instagram at Heritage Video Games. So check them out. Valarie, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit and have a chat with me today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And, I really appreciate you wanting to sort of hear our side of things and get to know me better. And, I would definitely come back 110%. So thanks for having me.
The honor is all mine. Thank you so much. And for all of you out there, thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe and like our videos, our YouTube. We have things like our podcast, game chats, and industry talks just like this. You could also go to NintendoFuse.com for a bunch of Nintendo news and reviews. Thank you so much for watching, and have yourself a great day.